Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Bridgecast, the only Bridgecast about bridges. It's great. My name is Drawn Onward, and with me tonight is my guest, Sharper.
Hello.
Sharper, if you want to introduce yourself? Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me onto the Bridgecast. I was very excited when you sent me the email. I don't know relative to where you live, whether we have more or fewer bridges, like West Australia to California. I don't know if I want to start like a bridge war.
Remember, this podcast is all about talking and advancing bridges, bridge culture. It's all about positive nonsense. I mean, we can get the nitty gritty. I'm not saying it'll never get negative, but what I'm saying is that bridge shaming, we're not about that. We're about advancing bridge media and bridge culture. I want to very much so be a positive force on the bridge and bridge loving community.
Oh yeah, no, I was more worried that it was like going to be bridge competitive, like that we were going to start a bridge war over this.
I mean, if we're playing bridge, that's fine. But if we're talking about actual real life bridges, then I'm not about that.
Okay,
I'm a bridge lover, not a bridge hater.
Right. So like we're both collectively sharing this bridge. This isn't like we're on opposite ends of the bridge.
The bridge of life, if you will.
Right,
exactly.
Right.
So bridges go back real far, right? Historically, they're a very old concept. And I think a lot of people would agree that arches, the Roman invention, of course, really helped bridges branch out from being a kind of small-time piece of architecture to really a staple architecture of every modern civilization, right? Like, we can agree on that?
Well, I mean, I guess it would depend on whether they needed a bridge.
Well, that's fair, but I mean, can you think of a modern nation that doesn't need a bridge?
Well, I mean, I can imagine a modern nation that wouldn't need a bridge. Like, I kind of feel bad now.
Describe this nation to me. I want to know.
Yeah, I'm like retracting on the like previous thing we were saying about the importance of appreciating bridges. But here's the thing: is like, a bridge is something that one would not build without the necessity for it. So, you wouldn't just like build a bridge willy-nilly if you didn't need one.
I mean, that's a fair point. I mean, what I feel like you're trying to say in a roundabout way is that all bridges are useful, right?
Yes.
That there's no bridge that is unuseful. Is that correct? Mine, actually.
Yeah.
Not
you should start a GoFundMe.
I should start a GoFundMe.
Please fund my birthday to be the best birthday ever.
Please fund my birthday.
Okay, well, I've officially pushed the button, so welcome to the AfterParty, conversations with SpyParty players. I can edit it. Today I'm joined by... I'm not even going to bother reading how many people there are, so let's just, like, go from the top of the list to the bottom of the list. Everyone can introduce themselves.
Oh, okay. I'm a Forgotten Tune. Hi, everybody.
And I'm Cletos.
It's Drawn Onward here.
I'm KCM.
Crazy Kaylee.
It's Lieutenant Hummus.
Is that everyone?
No, it's your turn.
Yeah. You
Oh, God damn it. Hello, I'm Sharper.
Slappy Davis.
And the one, the only.
Lieutenant Hummus again.
Ruined.
And by the way,
Also,
ninth on the list, Wodar.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yes.
You're number 9. Yeah.
That's why Steph can't come in here.
Are we here to talk
Well, it
about
should be
this?
10. I think he'd still be number 9. Actually, it's
Because this is alphabetical.
Yeah, you'd become
I'd
number
be
10.
10.
Yeah, Kaylee ruined that alphabetical list, by the way.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Wow.
I wanted to be a part of it, and I
Did you, though?
did. So I'm here.
You did.
Well, that's good.
So we're here to talk about SpyParty and SpyParty things.
Or is there more specific?
Well, PAX.
I think we're here to talk about PAX.
Can we talk about anything in PAX?
You know.
We're here to talk about...
I thought making it like post-pack special, so just so we can like decompress and talk about how the event was.
Yeah.
I
We should
just
kick it
about
off.
swearing. Do we want to keep this PG-13?
I don't know. Sharper said God and damn during his introduction.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so we're clearly in our territory by now.
I think
No,
that's
no,
probably
if
the
it's-
most I've cursed on the podcast. Like it might
I would believe
it
that.
might be a good idea to like keep it clean just for the sake of
For the
like,
children.
open audience.
If this is PG-13, we get
We
one
are
extra.
actually picking up quite a
Between all of
few
us.
like younger players in SpyParty.
Do we want to all go wash our hands as well, just to make sure we're all nice and clean? Is that
We gotta wash
a
our
good
hands
idea?
and wash our
Wow.
mouth out with soap.
I
Jesus.
always wash my hands before our podcast.
That's why it sounds so clean.
Well,
Yeah.
well, do we want to actually talk about the new stuff about SpyParty?
Yeah, let's
like
start
a
by
topic?
Stop there. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
let's start with SpyParty.
Yeah.
So we've got the tutorial.
There's a
That's the
So
feature that's
SpyParty's
actually there.
released. SpyParty was released at PAX.
Oh, God, we're never going to get through this.
yeah.
Hey, context.
So there's a tutorial now in SpyParty, or at least
Yeah.
there was in the PAX build.
Yep.
It's actually fairly long. It takes about, the average player, I would say, like 35, 40 minutes to get through it?
Yeah.
I don't think quite that
No,
long.
I
More
think
like
it was
25,
like
30.
I think it was
Yeah,
more
it's
like
like 20 to 5:30.
20 to 20,
20
minutes.
30.
It's
Yeah.
about a half an hour long tutorial, which is
It's pretty
fine.
simple. It's pretty simple. It mostly goes over how to do missions, how to click on things, how like here's how you shoot somebody, that kind of thing.
It goes
It
over
does-
some mission strategies, though.
It does. It does. I was happy with what looked like the
BB.
beginnings of like some. Here's how you really play SpyParty, and not just like here's how you actually like stand next to the ambassador and click things. Like Checker will yell at you if you stop off of a pad a bunch of times. One of my favorite features. This is the one I tweeted out was. When you banana bread, so first of all, it teaches you how to do the banana bread mission, and then it then shows you like all the lowlights the sniper could have gotten, and it says, you know, if you're out of conversation, look at all the lowlights, and then later when you're playing your quote unquote full practice game, when you banana bread, it freezes the game. It goes, oh, were you paying attention earlier when I told you about that lowlights thing? Let's see how many lowlights the sniper got.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I really liked.
It was
Like, I
amazing.
like things like that.
Amazing.
There's other little touches, like when you finish a spy, it switches you to sniper, and you get to do like a sniper practice game, like against a replay. And if you either shoot the wrong person or if you whatever, it says, okay, the spy won, but we're going to let you keep all of your lowlights because you didn't lowlight the spy, and start the game. And it kind of teaches you, you know, the value of whittling down the party, you know,
And also, I
that
think
way,
love
and how
that,
much easier it is,
yeah.
you know. Go on.
I love that when you shoot, like it, and then like he talks saying like, "Hey, you shot the wrong person." It instantly restarts from like where you left off, and it looks really nice. Just like aesthetically, just like restarting the game with having to go to a menu to restart.
One thing that I know Chris was really against for the longest time was actually editing the game for a tutorial. But as anybody who's seen the tutorial, I like how it actually says, just do bug. Here's how you do bug. Go bug. And then it's like, on to the next mission. I love that so much. I can't even begin to tell you guys how great
It
that
actually
was.
feels a little bit like you're brand new to the game and you're sitting at PAX and Checker is sitting behind you yelling at you the whole time. And that's that is a proper SpyParty tutorial, right? With somebody
Checker
telling you
yelling
how
at
to play
you.
the game. Yeah. Like, no,
Hey,
dude,
Chris,
don't do that. Don't do that. Do this. Like,
Do
don't
this.
walk away from a statue. Put it down. You don't want to clank. You know?
Don't make me turn this game around, young man.
I think some
true.
parts of it obviously need to be tuned up, and like the dialogue boxes with like Checker yelling at you, those are like great. Like,
Yeah.
but sometimes it was excessive. Like you'd be trying to do one thing, say you're trying to bug the ambassador, and Checker's also telling you not to step out of pads, but you're trying to figure out this mission. So some of those things can be, you know, tweaked, but
Yeah.
Tech
it's
also
pretty
said
good.
he wanted to revamp the whole sniper side because he didn't like how it played out.
Yeah, I'm curious
Yeah,
how
like
the
that-
sniper side
that
was.
part did just seem like it was kind of put together. I think he like intends to do like program probably a full spy game and have you like learn to snipe against it or something, like a proper sniper tutorial.
So
But I think for the sniper half, he just kind of threw in a couple replays and said that's good for now.
I mean, part of the problem is that when you play Spy, like, you have a lot to talk about, right? Like, here's how you do controls. Here's some things that, like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And when you're Sniper, it's like, well, you know, here's how you shoot, here's how you light. Good luck, you know? Like,
There's a lot
That's
of
the best part.
Yeah,
So
do you
for-
think
No.
it
One
may
guy
be?
who had to go around like 3 times to finally shoot the spy. I was just like,
I mean, there's a lot of different strategies for sniping versus, you have to finish the missions as a spy is the thing you have to do.
or not.
Or not.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if it just says, "Hey, here's 20 seconds on the clock. 4 characters are going to rush statue. You need to catch the one that swaps."
Yeah.
And if you divide the statues up between walls or something, or you make it so they have to choose to look at one at a time, then they'd have to learn how to track the swap without always being able to see it reliably.
So courtyard 1.
So little things like that.
Oh, okay, Shopper, I have to ask, what's going on in the background?
Oh, sorry. I've got 2 nephews over, so I've got push to talk enabled, and I'm hoping that's going to cover it
reasonably
enough.
Clearly.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay.
I've only got, so for the audience, this will hopefully work out great because I've got push to talk on for the recording, but I've just left it open mic for Discord.
Oh.
Yeah, you gave it away.
Wait, everyone. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. I hope we spiked.
We're all so mean.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
I love it.
So let's see. The other main change to the game is related.
Bug.
No. The more important change than the bug. No, the more important change.
On the subject,
that's the most important change.
on the subject of tutorial mode, we should mention beginner mode has been revamped.
Oh yeah, let's talk about beginner mode.
Greatly simplifying a lot of the mechanics and concepts.
No
in the
more
game.
action tests.
No more action tests. No more walking bugs.
So what do you guys think of beginner mode now?
So
do you want to just describe to the audience
tutorial.
describe quickly what has changed from previous beginner?
Okay.
Yeah.
Does somebody want to do it?
Yeah, I got it. So for beginner mode, so whenever you play BVB, ballroom, pub, high rise, whatever, a lot of I was gonna say, a lot of things have been stripped away. So there's no action tests. Everything just kind of defaults to the normal white action test when you hit it. Walking bug is gone. So you can only stand and bug, and I think those are the only changes. Oh, and
standing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the AMBA has to be standing, and
also
time
bug
limit
was completely revamped.
That's not beginner mode. That's a bigger change. We'll talk about
part of beginner mode, though.
We started by talking about the tutorial. It makes sense to keep talking about that stuff.
Oh, fine.
Voter, I'm going to drag you out of
I will turn this podcast around, young man.
we should a reversing sound coming on.
Yeah. So anyway, so I like the changes because I think I'm just remembering teaching people how I would not teach people about action tests in years past.
About it.
They'd ask about it, but I would just I would just be don't worry about it. But then when someone would lose to a green statue and they're well, I saw him statue, and that's just a really bad experience. So
I don't know.
Anything
when
you
people,
can.
When people question me why didn't you explain this part, I'm did you ever see me stop talking for 5 minutes while explaining it? I'm there's a lot of stuff to explain. I think they understand that. And most of them kind of accept that half the information you give them they don't remember anyway. So if you told them about the green swap, they would have forgotten it anyway.
Yeah, that's
I kind of like the when tutoring a person to let them think for themselves. You give them just enough so that they understand the premise, and then let them,
only butt in when they look completely confused or lost.
Yeah.
Or they look at you confused.
Yeah.
Maybe don't ask anything.
Yeah.
Oh, the word. Yeah.
Leave them to drown for themselves.
Exactly.
I remember I had this one person would take the safety off on a bunch of people, and they're should I shoot this person? I'm not telling you. And then they wouldn't shoot him, and then 30 seconds later, they'd, safety off another person. What about this person? I'm not going to tell you who the spy is.
I told people I wouldn't answer questions like that, and people would try. They're was that a bug? Was that a swap? I'm I don't know.
Was it?
One thing I really like about removing the action tests is that it added a whole layer of explanation you have to do for each mission, which was really annoying when you just want to say this is how you do a mission. But
there are
this is how.
I mean, I think seduce was hard enough with the proximity to the seduction target that adding an action test on top of that as one of your first missions is just too much overload. Yeah. To be wait, I was right next to them and I pressed the button. Why didn't that work? And it's well, You didn't press it at the right time. Whereas now it's a little bit simpler. Like, oh, the closer I am to the seduction target, the higher the percentage of seduce I get.
I mean,
Oh, that's the
we
other thing
all
too.
look- yeah.
The spy action will show you what percentage you're going to add.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, that was really
That
nice.
was that's only in beginner mode though, because it's guaranteed.
Right, because it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I guess the alternative is checker can put like a slash there, so 35/51% or whatever.
Slash
Yeah,
zero.
whatever happens to
But
be.
it's a little. I found it to be kind of excessive text and not really necessary once you know the game. Besides,
Well,
I
what's the
actually
actual
kind of like
mechanic there, even?
gauging. I like gauging the percentages. What was the question?
What's the actual mechanic on green? It's a multiplication or what? Because like if
I
you
don't
just give them the
know.
white,
It
You know,
doesn't
actually,
make
I don't
sense.
know.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I actually, Tobo actually knows all the ranges and percentages better than anybody else.
Yeah.
I know them pretty well, so I can usually say, this is enough, to put me in this category of position where I can win
Mhm.
via X number of flirts.
My skill
know?
cap.
Like, all I know is that the smallest percentage.
But
you
yeah,
can
it
get
just
is
straight up
17.
says it now.
Yeah.
So,
right?
I mean,
but
that's
what I mean
fine.
is like if they gave you just like without the slashes to me.
well,
seems
it can't be
excessive, but
double, right? Because
It's not double. Yeah, it's 30 because it'd be 33 or 34.
I
How
wanna
would
say,
you-
like, it's-
yeah.
It's like
I wanna say,
1.5
green
maybe.
has like their own like.
Well,
ranges.
also, how do you get to
Yeah.
50? What's the difference between 50 and 51%? It's 1 pixel, right? I don't know. There's little
Yeah.
quirks to it that we'd have to figure out, but
I think it's a surrounding error. 51%.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think Seduce. Well, I mean, that was a change from last year, and I've said this, I guess, to a lot of people. But I think Seduce is better than Microfilm. For a couple reasons.
Oh yeah.
It
Oh,
teaches
yeah.
Oh,
pacing.
definitely.
Seduce is one of the main missions in the game. It gets completed 99% of the time.
Yeah.
And it also, weirdly, by taking out like a hard tell that people couldn't do, putting in a soft tell, like it was forcing more hard tells with time adds.
Right. So for
It
context,
really interesting.
Which,
oh yeah, you go.
yeah, which teaches both, the importance of time management and that kind of risk reward factor where it's like if I had managed my time better, I wouldn't have to take the risk of a time ad and getting shot, by my friend
Yeah.
later. I think those are really cool lessons to have for new players.
Plus,
I like-
microfilm was basically the worst mission you could possibly have as one of the starter for.
Yeah.
It's the I mean, transfer green book to blue bookshelf, fine, but like the other part of microfilm is just the most complicated spy mission in the game. So it's,
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw
Also, I
so many
wanna say,
people
yeah.
busted for time ads too. It
Oh,
was
Yeah,
like,
Yeah, it's
time ad
great.
was definitely the biggest tell for snipers.
Yeah.
I also
The only
love that it
thing-
reduces what they have to look for, because like the usual beginner snipers get overwhelmed before the hard tells they have to be looking at, instead of like realizing, oh, I just have to look at one of them. They usually try to look at all of them. Now that like Seduce is in the mix, they know like Seduce is hard to keep track of. It's like they lessen their like focus on that, and they can focus on other things like swapping the statue, or like getting rollouts on BDs.
I have an open question for the group of which map did you like if you could choose a map for the beginners to start on, which one would you actually do? Because they're actually pretty
Oh, God,
different.
that's so
Like they
Pub
actually
because it's
do
the
it.
best map in the game.
I would say not pub because
God
there's
damn
only
it.
two-
Yes.
There's
agreed.
only 2 statues and
Yeah.
ballroom
I like
is
ballroom.
beginner would be beginner for a reason.
Yeah.
It's simple,
Yeah.
it's easy to
Yeah.
understand. It's not too
Oh, no, it's-
weird to see anything.
It's as
It's hard
balanced.
on a
As,
sniper,
it's as
though.
balanced as that mode is going to get as well. There's 6 statues. They're in 2 different spots. The ambo has variations of
Yeah.
great cover and terrible cover. Like it's a fair map.
Veranda's probably a bit too big, too many characters for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I
Yeah, you
had
have to
people-
move
Oh,
around
God.
too much.
Yeah. Ugh.
I mostly just let people choose their own maps. I had some people like ask, like I had one guy, he like sat down and he's like, I just want to beat the shit out of my friend. How do I do that? And I told him pick Veranda. And then, somebody else asked, like which map should I pick? And I was like, what are you trying to accomplish? Do you just want to beat the snot out of them and they won't know what's going on? Or do you want to do something fair? Or do you think you're going to be good at this? Do you want to pick a harder map? And they picked pub. I told them pub and high rise are going to be the hard ones, and they picked pub. So
I really
You
liked
know?
high rise for
Yeah.
new people though because of the movement of the sniper laser. They would
Yeah.
get the statue swap thing because one person figured out the camping of the statue right at the very beginning, and he was so confident that he was like, "Oh, I broke this game!" Right? He couldn't camp swap on high rise where it's easier on the other ones because of the movement around, and they got swapped past him, and he lost. And that felt good because it showed him something in the game, right? It showed him that
Yeah.
it's not as easy as you think.
My only concern with high rise as the beginner map is that while It's not the hardest map to swap if you know what you're doing as a camper. It's exceptionally hard as a newbie sniper to camp. You really don't know what you're doing in those first 2 games, and I feel like it makes it even easier for Spy to win than it normally is when you've got beginner versus beginner.
Which reminds me, like I was teaching someone on high rise, and I had to point out to them that if you move the camera, you can actually see there's an extra conversation circle that they weren't able to see because they just kept the camera at the starting position. And then I have to also then tell them, like, hey, if you move the camera to the right, there are also some statues over there.
Yeah, I also had people not notice the statues on the left side, from sniper perspective on high rise.
Yeah.
Like some people are like, I'm going to camp these statues, and they just don't look at those. I think, obviously Veranda is probably not the right choice.
No, it's too big.
I think it was
There's
just
too
there
much
because
going
that was
on.
like the new map last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And because of swap, pub is pretty unwinnable, but not all of the players are playing that game right away. So
The problem is
I don't
Hub
think
is
it's
that
that
the
bad.
center of the map is useless because there's no purloin. It's just this weird map that you put people on.
I just like pub, right?
A lot of people.
This is the
think
hill
that
I'm
because
gonna die on.
I think they like it aesthetically.
It's a very
I
nice
like
looking
pub
map.
because
Yeah.
there's like very little you have to keep track of. Like, don't use statues, so even a beginner can just memorize that.
I would also love
That's
to
true.
teach new players purloin pub, but it has the
Oh,
drawback
God,
with it.
no.
Right, it has the drawback
No.
of like, this is now the right.
So
Like, here's a bunch of exceptions to how everything.
Yeah,
you've learned
right.
works,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Which is great. Like, it's so fun, and I hope there are
But
more
yeah,
maps
but,
that
like,
have that.
this is a game about exceptions, so that's really hard to teach.
Is it a game about exceptions?
Oh, actually,
I mean,
that was
I
actually
think
confirmed by
so,
Checker. Was the there was gonna be another map that had the purloin like
I think
both
Modern.
Modern.
yeah, it's. I don't know if we were supposed to say, but yeah, it's now spelled
Oh,
modern
oops.
with an
Sorry,
E.
checker.
At the end. And
Oh,
it's-
was
I
that going
guess-
to be?
and
Was
I-
that going to be his big reveal? Was that the thing that we should get hyped
I
about?
know.
I
I
don't
can
saving-
like hold the release of this podcast
No,
until after it's.
I
official.
No,
believe
it's fine.
he's saving
But
that, and
we need to be
Courtyard
careful
1.
about giving away certain informations. But
Before we move on, the last thing I'll say about the tutorial is that with all the changes to missions, the only one where I really feel like there's a problem that the tutorial is seriously mistraining the players is with double agent.
Okay.
No green double agent possible. It just really hurts that mission a lot.
I want
I don't think with
to.
beginners.
I don't think beginners are paying attention to who is talking and who isn't. They're paying
saw
attention to who is
otherwise.
in a conversation. I saw a lot of lowlights for walking from one place to another.
I
being
saw
at
a
statues.
good number of Wodar shots during while watching people do
It's
the
Right,
definitely-
but the
tutorial.
false positive rate on a Wodar
No,
shot where you're
I-
not paying attention is crazy.
this
though.
goes into what I wanted to talk about actually, which is, see, I don't like the new beginner mode.
Oh.
I will say that it is definitely like helpful. Like, it got us through packs. It's convenient. But I really don't like that as a part of the game's design. My like mentality for games is when I sit down at playing a game, like a competitive game, I want to sit down at the same board that any other player sits down at. Like, when you sit down in a fighting game, you're looking at the same character screen as your opponent does, or as the best player in the world does. When you sit down at a chessboard, the pieces are all set up the same. And now when you sit down at SpyParty for the first time, you are playing an inferior version of the game than the top players are playing.
Yeah.
Could I make a counterpoint to that? Because I feel like I
Yeah,
have
of course.
some serious disagreement
But
there.
that's just how I feel about it, you know.
So I actually really like the new beginner mode for one primary reason, and that's the fact that because it says, hey, you don't have action tests, hey, these are the missions you're going to do, it kind of gates the players, right? It says, you know what? This isn't the full game, and we're not going to pretend like it's the full game. But you know what? Once you're comfortable here, you can get to that full game, and that's obvious, because I've had so many players over the years invite me to play beginner ballroom or beginner whatever, and I don't ever want to play those modes anymore. And I'm so happy that it's clear at this point they are not the game. They are the beginning. They're where you start, and you can edge your way out of there. So once you feel comfortable, you have a reason to learn these new game modes. Whereas before, players were playing them over and over and over, right? I'm so happy the game is explicitly telling these newer players, hey, you should get out of this once you know this. I mean, Chris would like write it in there in the manual, but it was never enough. And now I think it is.
By the way, Warning Track joined us.
Hello,
Warning
good
Track.
evening.
Hi, Warning Track.
I
Hey,
apologize,
Warning Track.
as most of you guys can attest.
Did
PAX
you
kind of
lose
messes.
track of time?
I lose track, and your
Where's
sleep
track?
schedule
It's
pretty
all
bad.
water under the bridge.
I slept for 13 hours last night, so I
Yeah,
definitely.
Tonight is the night I catch up, so I
Yeah.
apologize.
Wonderful.
But yeah,
Well,
those are my
welcome.
thoughts on it, KCM. That's how I feel.
I do think one thing is I don't think it's as clear from the PAX tutorial. Like the tutorial seems like it's clear where there's more depth to the game, but I mean honestly, unless the players like really asked about like, okay, how do you not start camping swap? What are the other missions? That was one of the best things, is talking about the other missions. I don't know.
Mhm.
Some of them might come away with the impression that was the full game, but then again, it's kind of like
Warning
we have
Track
to hook
actually
them.
had an experience like that, I think.
Alright.
Like one person.
Several different people over the course of the weekend asked me, what are these other missions? What are the books for? Things like that. And I got to at least allude to the greater depth there, which I really appreciated. But there were two guys in particular who came by, and they came back again later, specifically so they could play the other 4 missions.
Yeah.
Although I think what
Ah.
KCM was referring to, actually was something sort of bad, a little sad even. A couple guys came by, and they seemed like pretty hardcore gamers, and they figured out pretty much immediately that you should just camp, statues in particular. And you know how it works. We tend to say after about 10 or 15 games, both players figure that out, and they can't play beginner mode anymore. These guys figured it out in the first game, and it seemed to kind of turn them off. They kind of thought, oh, I guess we solved it. And I had to explain to them, no, you're ahead of your time, but that's good. There's more depth here. But I think the ship had sailed at that point.
That's rough. That's real rough.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to balance, because that is a sort of like double-edged sword of beginner mode is that like point where you realize, oh, okay, like begin mode is inherently broken, but when you're starting out, you have so much information to learn about that you don't realize that. It's I guess
Most
it's
of the
not,
time.
yeah, yes. It's not a situation we come across that often, but it's still something that could totally happen, of like a beginner realizing that quirk, not knowing about the way that the game is supposed to work with subsets, and then just assuming that the game is broken.
There were a couple issues here, one philosophical and one logistical. Logistically, the third station was primarily for the tutorial, whereas normally it would have been an unlimited station, and that's where people would have experienced the deeper meta if they wanted to. In this case, that only happened a few times. I think at one point, Hummus, you remember, I think you were talking to kids for a solid hour about it. Later on, Bacon did the same thing, also with kids. I think we're deliberately trying to hook them young.
Yeah, hook 'em young.
And they have a limitless capacity for that meta stuff. They're like a blank slate, and they just soak it up like a sponge, and they're so good at it so quick. That's a logistical hurdle. The philosophical one, something KCM and I talked about several times over the weekend, which is that there's an inevitable trade-off in making the game more accessible, which you just alluded to there. The more accessible you make it, by necessity, the less you can hint at that depth, because it might turn people off. And we kind of came to the conclusion that it was sort of important that those things fight in the community, that there be people like KCM who say, no, we need to hint at that depth, that there be people like Checker or whoever else who say, no, we need more players, and those need to fight and work out an equilibrium in the end.
Fight.
So I think the tutorial is going to be really responsible for that, where the tutorial has to allude to that, because the tutorial, like at PAX, we were on a time crunch. We can't do all the depth stuff, but a tutorial could even have a tutorial 1, tutorial 2 that hints at greater depth. The tutorial, to me, could be up to an hour. If they wanted
So I
to,
didn't
if they
actually
break it up.
get to see the tutorial in its entirety. Did the tutorial go over action tests at all?
No, not even a little bit.
Well, that
I mean,
seems
the
like a thing you would
Tutorial
want.
is all beginner mode stuff, right?
Real talk
So-
with the tutorial. I mean, so I am constantly advocating for single player SpyParty to be like a 60-hour tutorial for the game. Like,
You know, I was actually
Maybe you should write a book.
just thinking about it. Because you can basically make like these little gamey missions. You have to hide from little characters, like a Solid Snake sort of thing. When they turn their back, bug the ambassador, and that's how you teach the mission.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And then the next thing, you're a sniper, and you've got, like in a few levels down, and you've got to spot somebody bugging an ambassador. Right? You know where the ambassador is. Somebody's going to walk by and bug, and you got to shoot him. And you just gradually introduce these concepts until, you know, towards the end, like, oh, now you've gained action tests. It's some stupid glove you find
Yeah,
and put on
yeah,
and you can do
exactly.
action tests. And
And
now
like,
you've got the full arsenal of spy shit. You understand how to camp and how to shoot people, and then you beat the campaigns. Like, go play online. You know?
now you're ready to actually play like a
60
basic
hours.
level
No,
Spy
I
Party.
can't
Really
speak
silly
no,
with 60
no.
hours.
I disagree.
That was a random number I threw out. It does
Yeah.
it can
Sure.
do whatever. Like,
I
yeah.
disagree with that whole concept, though. Like,
Yeah,
Why?
I don't
Like,
think
I
you should
remember-
lock people out of.
I mean, you can still tell a story with it. You can still make a game out of it, but you teach the concepts in single player,
Yeah, but
right?
you can't teach
Yeah,
it-
but
you can't
Spy
spend
Party
that
is a
much time.
multiplayer game. Like, I'll always remember, like, this is what it's going to be like. Like, I remember I waited out, at, God, it was like Hollywood Video for the midnight release of Smash Brothers for the Wii.
Mhm.
And, like, some friends, we were also excited. We got it. We were, like, first in line. We got the game. We stopped by Safeway, grabbed some beer on the way home. We got back to the apartment, like, all right, let's play. And of course, like, the first thing you do is you want to play multiplayer, and oh god, like half the characters are unlocked or are locked away,
Or locked. Yeah.
right? So I think you should just I actually kind of like it. Here's the tutorial, here's the beginner mode, here's the bare minimum you need to at least have some fun with this game.
Well, I'm not
we all
saying,
know-
I don't think Kaylee was saying lock out, like,
I agree. Like you should have
He
full
was just
multiplayer
saying,
the
like-
first day. Yeah.
But
Okay.
the goal
But, like,
of
So
the
that's the
goal
question,
of
though.
the single player mode should be to bring people to that point where they can play the game.
Right.
Right. I mean,
And you do that by gradually introducing features one after the other. Like again, someone who jumps into a multiplayer game should get everything right away. But like, if you want to play this again, the model is Papers, Please for me. That's a game with a ton of rules and a lot of information, and the whole campaign is just okay. Now we're adding this thing. Now we're adding this thing. Now we're going to teach you about this and this and this and this. Manage all of this at once. That's the game, and that's for me a good model for SpyParty because it's similar to Papers, Please, in that it has. This and this and this and this and this use. You have to know all these things. Know all of them at once, player.
But see, I disagree with
I
that.
think Wodar needs to
What-
talk.
what-
Wodar, say something.
Like in Papers, Please, when you're like introducing like small things like one at a time, you're actually playing the game. In Spy Party, you're not playing the game unless you're playing against another person.
Yeah.
Like this is a multiplayer game.
Well, then why have
I
single
had
player
sort
at
of have
all?
a
You know,
rebuttal.
like,
I sort of have a rebuttal. Playing like World of Warcraft, a lot of people consider every level up until max level to just be like that whole process is a tutorial of how to play your character. And then when you get to max level, you're playing with people, and they're going to depend on you in raids or in like PvP or whatever it is you're doing. And yeah, like essentially you're playing like a multiplayer single player game until the end. That's how a lot of people look at it.
I think it's worthwhile to have a good single player experience too, independent of whether or not, is this quote unquote what the multiplayer is. Because, I mean, there are going to be numbers of people for whom, if the game is just the multiplayer, they're not going to play a ton of it, because it's a stressful game and people bounce off of it. And I feel like single player helps it get its hooks into you a little bit. And I feel like a lot of people leave the game without knowing, all the 1 million things about SpyParty that make it interesting. If you were to go through the single player and get those introduced to you in a lower stress environment, then hopefully, or at least it'd be my hope that maybe the game would be a little more sticky for new players.
I mean,
see, now I think we're arguing two different things.
Well, what
Yeah,
about like Mortal Kombat? The new Mortal Kombat games do that excellently, right? Like they're designed to be these like high-end competitive, fighting games, but then they just like cram in a shit ton of single-player content, and there are players who just buy them and play through the stories and unlock everything and have fun with their friends on Saturday.
Do the challenges.
And
Yeah,
that's it.
exactly.
And
exactly.
that makes them like no less a fan of Mortal Kombat, and it doesn't like stop the series from having this crazy like esports following with people who do play competitively. There's nothing wrong
I'm
with
gonna
that.
push back on that actually, because I understand the basis of that, but if we had 10,000 players that were doing all the single player stuff in the SpyParty community, they don't mean anything to the community. The game still dies if they don't come ever. If they don't
that's
ever.
so harsh
cross
to
over.
say it like that.
No,
Like,
You don't matter.
That's,
I don't.
It matters to pad
they
checkers
matter, but they
checkbook.
don't help the community.
That's
Right.
interesting. I mean, there'd be people inevitably who would either be interested and want to eventually get involved, or maybe just be involved in talking about single player, how that works, or why this works, right? I mean,
But
I'll
it's-
agree they would definitely be. I don't want to say lesser because that is a really, I think, rude thing to say to them. But yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah.
Oh, they're definitely not lesser. They just don't contribute to the community. mean,
Yeah.
that's a fact.
But if the
Well,
single player wasn't there, would they contribute anyway? Would they?
I mean, my
Right.
hope is that some of them are going to turn into multiplayer
Yeah.
devotees.
it's-
Wouldn't be otherwise, right?
We
But
don't
that's not the-
expect the current multiplayer people to abandon it and just switch to the single player either, right? So
Right.
I don't think the community will disappear. It's just here's another thing that's another niche SpyParty can fill, I guess. Like, you're right, it is a multiplayer game and it always will be. But
Another important thing to consider, maybe, there's probably a lot of players for whom they play with a friend in isolation because they're like overwhelmed, or there like hasn't been a clear tutorial, and so they feel like, oh, I'm like really confused by this. I'm just going to play with this friend, and that's all we're going to do in SpyParty.
Yep.
Together.
I think spectate sniping helps mitigate that a little bit, though.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of like 1.5 player game. Like, you're not really playing versus the spy. You are playing versus the spy, but the spy isn't playing against you
Against
in that
you,
instant.
yeah.
But okay, so my main thing about that though is it's not that I'm saying they shouldn't play single player. Is that if the single player and the actual game, doesn't point people towards the community, I think it's
That's
not.
why I'm saying spectator sniping helps with that problem, because you have to be in the lobby. You may end up talking to the person that you're.
Oh no, talking. How scary.
Yeah.
I think Toon is making a really good point here, which is that a lot of the people who don't stick around are people who, even though they're playing the quote-unquote multiplayer game, they're not playing it as a community game. They're just playing with their friend. They're just learning together because of the skill curve. And for all intents and purposes, for the long-term health of the game, that's exactly the same as bouncing off of it.
Yes,
Mm.
yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly right.
But if
We
you
have the
log on to the game because you want to play and your friend isn't online, there is an option for you to not necessarily have to go, hey guys, I want to play, let me play a game. But you can spectate someone else and
That's sort of-
low-key.
I had a lot of people asking at PAX, or a few people anyway, would say, like, so what's this game like when you get home? They're like, do you just play random people online? So I guess they just thought it was like you hit a quick play button and you just get lucky and get your friends sometimes. Or, no, I told them, like, no, there's like a lobby, your name is in there, and you can click any name you want and you can play your friends. And I said, but I'd recommend, you chat and play anybody because everybody's cool,
Yeah.
But
So
I
that
had the same kind of questions.
But
and
how do you get
I
that
brought
across?
up spectate sniping if you're playing alone and nobody is there to, like, everyone's already in a game or whatever.
and that's
We
good
had-
advice now.
We had the chance.
Yeah.
We had the
Sorry,
chance
go
to
ahead.
talk to Checker a little bit. He came with us and ate at Whole Foods with us,
That
and
was a good night.
and subsequently played Joust with us, at which he's fucking terrifying.
Oh
Yeah.
God, man, yeah.
So, but anyway, back to talking to Checker about SpyParty, and he had a little bit of input on this, and his input is kind of important since he makes the game. He wants to. So his model for a tutorial long term and getting people from a more single player experience into a multiplayer experience. His model is Hearthstone. He wants to have like a pretty seamless transition pretty early in the player's experience from you're doing all the single player stuff and being trained into now it turns out you're playing against some players. Oh, who knew all along you were playing against players and it was indistinguishable from the CPU. So yeah.
He talked about literally tricking people into playing players without
Yeah.
realizing. And I said, "Are you really trying to turn your game into Ender's Game? Because that's what you're basically going
Did you
for."
tell
Nice.
did you tell the anecdote with John Simino about him playing Hearthstone?
Yes.
Yeah,
that was
he
the
does
model.
tell
He
us
really
a lot.
trusts Simino's input on it, and Simino's like Hearthstone makes it very low pressure to get into a multiplayer game. It makes it very easy psychologically to get into doing that. It sort of very gently and sweetly eases you in from the single player experience.
But
And I think there's something to that. I think SpyParty is even far more than Hearthstone, like a stressful game to play multiplayer.
Yeah.
So it does need
Yeah, a little bit.
sugar.
But now all I want is like it to like follow like Dark Souls, where like in like the single player campaign or like whatnot.
Oh my god!
Every so often, a player could like take control of the sniper.
Get out!
Okay, but what I mean, if you don't like the idea of a real single player campaign, what would you rather have? Like would you just want it just to be like, here's a tutorial, leave?
No.
Like what do you
I
think?
mean,
No, I like the
Kind
idea
of.
of like single player content. It's just that single player as the tutorial hurts because you want the tutorial to be short, but like single player as the single player
can't-
campaign will be long.
It can't
You
be short. It's not
can't. You
possible.
can't have a short tutorial for SpyParty. It's literally impossible.
But I
That's
think
what
the
you want.
tutorial as it stands, like right now, like based on what we played, At least as far as like maybe not the exact wrapping in the package, but as far as what was inside and what was covered, basically beginner mode. Like I think that is a fine progression. Look, you load the game, you play tutorial beginner
action modes, action tests as well.
No, I think action tests don't totally unneeded for a beginner.
What about instead of action tests? How about
action tests are so important in the game, though.
Yeah.
They're
what
but
about
not for beginners? Like who cares?
How about
I agree with
instead of
that,
action tests? What if you just straight up say this is how swap behaves in beginner mode? It's a 50-50 between green or white, and they have to learn both.
No,
And
then it
then
just
for
sounds
BBA,
then it just
how
sounds
they
too
talk.
RNG.
No, because as soon as they learn it,
God.
then it'll make sense when the action tests come in.
Well,
I
no,
don't think
then
that's necessary.
so
That's
let me
totally
finish my
yes.
flow. Let me finish my flow. So you download the game, you play tutorial, beginner tutorial. You can go online, whether that's subtly tricking you to go online or explicitly clicking, find me a random person with some basic matchmaking or whatever. You play a couple games, and then you'll eventually, you'll see that, well, what is, beginner 2, or, what does tutorial 2 look like? And then that's where you introduce action tests and the rest of the missions, and then you say, go have fun.
Okay,
What if
so
after you
also
did
with
the
the
beginner tutorial, you got dumped into like a beginner lobby where all you saw were other beginners,
Right,
or the
well, you-
matchmaking. But then at some point, after a certain number, they said, okay, now it's time for the advanced tutorial.
and then we also have a low priority lobby for people that
Yes.
rest people know. That's
Yes.
where
Yeah.
Vodar is permanently there.
Yeah, I think we really need to think about not what's just good today, but what's going to be good down the line, what's going to be scalable. Because a few you mentioned earlier, and I totally agree with this, that when you're talking to people at PAX and they ask how they play, you say, yeah, go into the lobby and just ask someone. Really, literally anyone, because 99% of us are going to be cool and nice and helpful. That's true now. I don't know if we can rely on that being true in the future. So the question is, how much do we want to lean on that now, knowing that it might not always be true?
And regardless of how many people or how nice people are, like if you had let's suppose Steam Early Access, Checkers Wildest Dreams Come True. We've got like 1,000 people in the lobby. I mean, you just can't type. Like it's going to be Twitch chat.
It's going to be chaos.
Speaking of Steam Early Access, I think to move the conversation along, Checkers sort of confirmed to us that Steam Early Access is happening. The date that I was told to tell people was February. And
Me too.
I've been told that before, though, in previous years.
I just told people early next year.
The reason I think that this time it's actually pretty serious is that
different.
well, yeah, this time it is different, and I think what's different is that he sort of confirmed to us that he's holding 2 new art maps for Steam release. Like apparently, New Art Courtyard and
1 and 2
Gallery are more or less like close to done or done. He didn't really say, but they're in some
done with them.
Yeah, they're in some state of completion or near completion, but they are not going to be released until Steam Early Access, which would be consistent with it being released in the next few months or so.
Yeah, he wants a big flash, is what I was told.
Yeah, I'm also
he wants it to
low-key.
feel like a genuine release because you only get to hit Steam once, so it's going to hit Steam. He's going to say, "Well, I'm still working on the game," but he's going to remove the text that says "early beta" or whatever it says, like "work in progress," and he's going to have to throw in a few maps and say, the game looks done now.
Yeah,
that'd be 6 new art maps.
It does.
Yeah.
It's a very polished game once you're playing it and know what's going on. But if you don't know what's going on and you're moving your character around, they keep spinning in circles and you don't know why, and you keep getting shot for nothing, I guess.
I really hope that he would have done a revamp of the new art animations before Steam.
I think the animations
they're
are
I think that's going to happen much later.
There's a few that could be tweaked. I think like the main issue would probably be the arm snapbacks. You know what? I'm almost coming around on Cane Bug.
It's just
Because you can
no.
it's just a
Totally fine.
behavioral thing at this point. And if you put the time into it, you can see it. Kaylee can see it.
You can see it. It's very difficult.
There's no reason to complain about it anymore. There's no reason to complain about it anymore.
What do you mean there's no reason?
Hey, I can't see it, and I'm telling you, don't complain about it.
Here's the situation with Cane Bug.
If you don't complain about it.
That character is such a bad pick. Nobody can pick him now.
KCM will shoot you for Cane Bug because you did that path. I will shoot you for Cane Bug because I will be like zoomed in at 3 levels, like looking for the slight animation break, and that's the level. And I think that's fair, right? Like I'm okay with Cane Bug because if I'm staring at it, then I can see it, and that's the level that Cane Bug should be at. That's like a
Yeah,
very, very,
if-
very hard to camp
if-
mission, but it's possible.
If quote the best player can see it, then
Oh, then it's
no.
perfect.
What I mean is not in that.
I
I,
know, I
don't
know.
mean it as an insult because I
Any
do think Haley is the
point in
best
time,
player.
yeah.
But if any one
Oh,
player
that's not
can
true.
see this one thing, then they're the best player at that one thing, and then everybody else can try to get to that level with it.
I mean,
That's how it
there are
should be.
things that you can track in the game that still need to be changed, though.
Yeah, there are
There's
things that
still-
need to be adjusted.
Right.
Yeah, so
like balance-
like,
I don't like balance
Not back right now on some of the newest batch, needs to be fixed. But
Like the teleport bug. I mean, like there
the
are a few
teleport bug
things
is
that are.
bad.
Yeah, the teleport bug's probably the worst bug in the game right now, I would say.
Agreed.
There are a few things that could still use fixing. What I'm wondering is what's going to happen with dossiers, because like right now there's a bunch
Yeah.
of filler text in there. Like, are we
Oh.
gonna do that first? Like,
God, I thought you were talking about the cars from PUBG at first. I was like,
So-
what the hell?
no, not
My
dossier.
understanding,
Thomas,
my
dossier.
understanding of it is the dossier isn't just like the text there. The dossier is the entire system of behaviors the character is supposed to have, right? So
Right,
on
right.
top of having unique animations, they're supposed to be like, oh, Orange Dress likes to move around a lot because Orange Dress has to be crazy. The General likes to drink, so 80%
Exactly.
of the time he
Yeah.
accepts a drink instead of rejecting it. Things like that.
Hmm.
I
And
don't think he's going to get to that.
that stuff is supposed to be listed, and you're supposed to be able to question Damon about the dossier during
Oh,
games.
God.
But-
Yeah.
I
He's
hope
not
he
gonna get
cans the
there.
Damon mechanic entirely.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what it seems like he's putting in next. But I don't know. Like, if that's all you can do is question Damon about information that you should have already remembered as the sniper, then it's not gonna be used at high level play anyway.
Not to
It'll just be a
mention,
feature for
recommendations need to come in before dossiers because dossiers are just going to
Yeah.
make snipers stronger. I don't know why we're focused. Why I don't know. But also to get back to the stickiness thing and the Steam Early Access thing, the one thing that I want to make a differentiation on is the community. Online community is not the lobby; it's the forums. There needs to be a way to get people into the
Yeah.
forum. That's where the depth of the game is. That's where you get people to stay. So they get to the forums. I will take forum, like someone interacting with the forums, over the lobby any day for a way to predict that they'll stay in the game.
How about a button link for it in the lobby?
That's what I've been.
Huge,
Isn't
huge
that
button.
I've been asking
Yeah,
Checker
huge
for that.
button.
I think, but
Does that
somebody
button
posts
exist?
that now.
Yeah,
because
it
I think
does.
there should
It's
be.
in the main menu.
I
but
think
not
it's on the
in
main
lobby.
menu, yeah.
It's in the main menu that everyone like goes past, right?
What? Oh, it's like a tiny
it's
little
in the
button
game.
on the
Yeah.
on the bottom. Yeah, no, that's garbage.
And like the end of the tutorial, is like a link to the forums. That's my point about like the getting people in the online community isn't getting into lobby; it's getting into the forums.
There should just be a big button in this like giant like yellowish space
At
under
the
lobby
bottom?
menu
Yeah.
that just says "click this to go to the forum." Click this to get good. You know,
Boo.
and you're like, oh
Oh
crap!
my
I-
god, the
I've played
space.
four games. I've played 4 games against this Yeesh guy, and I have no points. Why is that? I'll click this button.
We could have fake ads where it's like, beef up your spy game, and like have like flexing up stuff. We
Snipers,
could have like
snipers hate this. these
Sniper
10 techniques.
esport training, $20 an hour. Also, I'm looking at the spacing in between buttons, and it's just all inconsistent. How is this?
Don't
Oh,
spy.
it's like top 10 tricks that
Don't
snipers hate.
worry
Number
about it.
7 will amaze you.
Something
be
I
very upset.
really want to get to before
Oh
we
no.
go all the way past it is one of the best changes to SpyParty in this PAX build.
Oh,
He's
God.
gonna say the
Change
rug in
the
the
bug.
ballroom.
I don't know if
Well,
it's
the
really the
work brings
best
everything
change.
together.
It is a change. It's a
It is
change.
an amazing change.
It's fine.
Can you
I mean, it's
describe
good.
it, Woda?
Like,
Woda, can you
yeah.
describe it?
Yeah.
Tell
Okay.
the people.
So before, how bug used to be differentiated between conversation bug and walking bug, where if you start a conversation bug, then you have like a bit of a longer range to get to the ambassador while standing in a conversation. But if the ambassador moves at all, or if you move at all, then the bug is cancelled, even if the ambassador like sticks near you or whatever. Similarly with walking bug, you just do at all, like if you're moving at all, or if the amber's moving at all, you have a shorter range for the bug to take. But if like they stay near you, when like you get to the threshold, you get the bug. Now he's like scrapped that whole thing, and there's only moving bug and standing still bug, I think is how he said it, right?
Moving and stationary.
Yeah. So the way it works now is that if you start a stationary bug where you're stationary and the amber is stationary,
and you're in the range of the stationary bug range.
Yeah, exactly. It acts like it's like a conversation bug.
Essentially.
Yeah. And then if you're walking or the amber's walking and you start a bug, then it's going to be just like the walking bug. However, with the change now, if you start a stationary bug and then the amber starts moving, it seamlessly changes into a walking bug.
No. I'll explain. If you begin a stationary bug, you'll do like that animation, and if the amber starts moving, then you'll retain that range. Quote, to be nice to you is what Checker said, and the amber can still get hit if they're within that range. Like,
yes. You can still get the bug if the amber moves.
But your animation does not change. It just stays. Yeah. That's a.
But can't you also move?
That's the other part of it. That's the other thing. If you start moving, then it switches to the smaller moving range. This is only if the spy moves, not if the amber moves. This is specifically if the spy moves. And it switches to the more subtle animation, which makes me think that you could probably start a bug, get the lean, and then or just twitch and get like a more subtle animation. That's not that bad because you can already do that. It just makes it a little easier. But the stationary bugs playing that full like lean animation at all pads is a nerf in new art for Spy.
Yeah, it's a nerf, but this is a huge buff for like all those times when you start in conversation bug and then the amber starts moving and you sit next to you. You don't get that bug.
I don't see. Here's the thing: is like that seems like a huge buff to you, but because my play is just like I like just play around that. I've never seen that as a problem. Like I know when the Emba is going to leave, and I don't start bugs right before the Emba is going to leave.
You're right. ACM is psychic. He can see when an Emba leaves.
No, I just you can tell. Yeah, if the Emba
there's a timer sometimes.
There's a timer. You can always predict the timer, and you can watch the Emba's animation.
Yeah, but the Emba can leave when
like,
the timer is not being ticked down.
Don't start bugging the Emba as they're putting a briefcase down. Don't start bugging as they're taking.
That's not the only time when they leave.
Also,
they leave all other times also.
Look, this does like I do not suffer because of this, and so yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry that you do.
I like that it's been fixed. Like I don't think it's the biggest bug in the world. Like it is really annoying. And it's kind of like a terrible thing to explain away. Like like oh well, why didn't that bug take? And you're like okay, so right, and then insert long explanation here.
This helps teaching new players more than anything else.
I think that's totally deserving of fix. Whether you want to talk about if it's a buff or a nerf, like whatever.
It's hard to tell.
I think it's such a minor thing in any way. Like, I think it's fine.
This is a quality of life change, which I just love.
I can't totally agree with Woder. I have to half agree.
Bug, I think, is perfectly balanced in the game right now. In my opinion, I think it's a really fair mission for both sides, and it's the mission that I think doesn't need to be changed right now. There are missions that could be, buffed for the spy a bit, and this isn't one that needs it. So I guess we get it, but hopefully it's a lot better. Hopefully it's a lot better.
Welcome him.
Oh my god.
Oh, maybe he's not here actually.
This whole conversation started when people just asked whether or not anything absolutely needed to be fixed before Steam. But I think we have our answer because we just played what I think is fair to say was the most competitive event in SpyParty history. There have been a lot of good tournaments, but I think SCL Season 3 had the most people involved, the longest at the highest skill level. And I don't feel, correct me if you guys disagree, I don't feel like anyone else felt that anyone was exploiting anything, that there was anyone like rampaging through people in games they shouldn't have won because they figured out some little trick that could be exploited over and over.
Yeah, Kaylee
fair, right?
exploited his ability to stare at like the entire map. That's not fair.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, no, in general, I agree with you. I agree with you, though.
Right. The point is, we can have high-level competitive events where it feels fair to almost everyone involved almost all the time. So even though there are definitely things that need to get fixed, it's not actually currently interfering with our ability to play competitively.
I mean, my problem with that argument is that
how is that an argument?
I think his problem with the argument is an argument, but go ahead.
What you stated with the assertion is that SpyParty self-balances because we always swap between spy and sniper, right?
I didn't say that at all, but that's
It's exploitable. Even if something is exploitable, it self-balances itself because you can also exploit it yourself when you're the spy.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I agree with you disagreeing with that, whether someone said it or not. That's certainly not true. If it could be self-balancing in that sense, I guess. But yeah, if the sniper's winning 95% of the time, that's a problem. Absolutely. But that's not what I mean. I just mean that even though it had some high sniper win rates, it wasn't usually that extreme, except in very small doses. So.
He won like all but like 2 of his sniper games.
Whoa, right. And then what happened in the finals? Didn't KCM win 3 and nearly win 2 others? I mean, we're still talking about very small sample sizes in one SCL season. We don't play that many games.
I mean, I don't agree with Wodar, but I will definitely push back on Sniper not being ridiculous right now. Like the spy games that were won, they were the Courtyard 1 games, which were really interesting. I think that was more of a uncomfortability. And then Balcony. Those were basically the spy wins of the finals. Everything else.
Also, I tend generally to ban out maps where spies do better too.
True.
So
Yeah, it's part of Kaylee's strategy to hopefully get like a point and then just ride the line.
Yeah, just wait until we get another song.
And that's kind of what I expected.
I was actually talking about KCM with this. I want another hardtail, and then
Yes,
just try to break the
1,000%. I think it's 1 hardtail or 2 hardtails rather than 1 softtail. Because if it's 1 softtail, you're going to have a different problem. You're going to have it feel unfair because then you can't camp at all. Then it's all behavioralism. Then people are going to be done and be AIs all the time.
That sounds
But
great.
I think the way you combat camping,
yeah.
you combat camping with volume. 1 or 2 more hardtails. There's only so many anyone can do.
Well,
But
you
it'll
think
still feel
about-
fair because you could see them if you wanted to. And that's what always feels fair when you lose a sniper is I missed something, but if I'd been looking in the right place, I could have seen it. That's the fair feeling loss as sniper. I think that we just were 1 or 2 hardtails away from this really not even becoming an issue anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
What
what
was
do you think
Steph's
about in like
sorry,
in
Cletus.
like tournament mode, like having like a requirement, say, okay, you need a loadout to include at least 1 hardtail or something like that.
Well, we talked about that for a long time, and I actually love I call it the menu thing, where we could have something like it's known 1 plus any 2 of blah blah blah, and pick 1 of 2, that kind of thing. But it's really complicated to make. It make for really cool game modes,
Yeah.
but it's just
I
a
don't think it needs to be
pain
like
to set up.
every mode, just like, okay, this is the tournament mode. These are the rules for this tournament sort of thing. Not necessarily.
You
Like,
have that
every
in
game needs
practice.
this.
You have that in practice already because when you play 4 of 8, you have to do a hardtail. So it already is sort of do your 3 softtails and then pick your hardtail for the most part.
No, not because you have fingerprint. And then
Yeah, but like fingerprint becomes a pseudo hardtail in that there are like 4 softtails.
Yeah.
So like what Kaylee does is that he just camps.
Yeah. I'm not
He
just saying-
includes camping the.
Wait,
That's
Kaylee Camps, tell me more about this, please.
I know, right?
Even
Amazing, right?
even Kaylee's muted. He doesn't need to hear about how he camps.
Well, the thing with hardtails is I think we need a couple more, but also the spy needs better ability to do the hardtails. Like I love the idea of like breaking animation to quickly do things in the blind spot of the sniper. Just the ability to sneak past the hardtails that do exist. Anything like that would be amazing. I think the softtails are in a fine spot, but trying to break the camper's chokehold on hardtails alone is the only thing that needs to be improved.
Well, one thing I think
like book and like like taking the microfilm out while you're in a conversation or something like that.
I just want to be able to like drop kick a book.
Well, I
into
think
a
we
Greek
should
virtual
just
bookcase.
we need to have like reduced sniper laser
SpyParty
latency.
definitely needs more drop kicks.
Oh,
Yeah.
Throw the book across the room from one bookshelf to the other.
It's okay. I've been thinking about this.
Uh-oh.
I don't like this solution, but what do you guys think about slowing down the sniper's movement?
No.
I don't like
it.
The first change that needs to happen to the sniper is reduced laser latency. We need to sync up the players better. And as soon as that happens, the spy can start to react to where the laser is. Like, you already move really slow on Courtyard 2, and if you look around to one side, it should take you like 3 seconds to get back around to the other side. It does. It takes you 3 seconds to get your body around to the other side as sniper. So why is it that the spy can't take advantage of that? It's because they don't know if the sniper is still on that side or not.
Yeah.
You come around, you break animation to get out really fast, and they see you, and you're like, wait, your laser's still on the other side. You know, when you get shot now, when you shoot, it takes 3 seconds for the bullet to hit you. That's all because of latency. That needs to be cleaned up.
Which ruins
I mean, like
dancing, by the way. It's terrible.
Yes.
I have
I
changed
don't
my
like.
position on
I'm
laser
not
latency
happy
just
with
now.
Courtyard right now because I can't play the game that I think I should be able to play there.
Right.
Like Courtyard 2 to me is
And
almost like
Pan-Op.
Pan-Op. Well,
Yep.
Pan-Op is that way, I think, by design at this point. So it's like it's okay to have a map like that, but it's not Courtyard
Mhm.
2. In
Well, then, and
Courtyard
also with
2,
Pan-Op-
I need to be able to hide.
Pan-Up, you can't guarantee they're not going to whip back in a split second. So that it's a little bit better because they always can look back. It's just that it sucks when you think they've looked away the first time. You go do something and then they're already looking back at you, even though you try to calculate it out.
Well, I think more than any other map, Pan-Op suffers from that like Schrodinger's like cat kind of effect, where it's like you're not being watched unless you are, sort of thing, and you're being watched at all times unless you're not, or something.
The main thing, more than slowing the sniper down, would be, and I think this for two reasons, is limiting the amount the sniper can see. Like maybe always having some sort of binocular vision where there's like the kind of circular thing.
Yeah, well, I think
because
you can just like in Overwatch, there's a locked aspect ratio. Like it's always
Yes.
no matter how wide your monitor is.
And that's
that's-
also
that's
true for
Theory-
different monitor sides.
Theory
because,
already
like, the breaking
plays.
thing.
Theory
Yeah, the hacker
already
vision.
plays zoom in like level 1 is a rule sometimes.
Does
Yeah,
anyone
and I think that would be really
like-
great. I just, the last thing is I just think people can cheat with it, and that's my only other thing is people can straight up cheat with it on Pan-Up.
I love
by
that.
messing with the ratio.
Yeah, I tested it out, and like on my screen, if you like make it super wide and then you shrink the height, you could just see every single side of Pan-Up at once. Like it's just real dumb.
There's also like the UI doesn't scale properly and stuff, or maybe Checker fix that bit. But you can like if you make your game window smaller, it's easier to track time.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and things like that. And those, it all needs to be like normalized. If you make your game window smaller, everything needs to get smaller.
Right,
Just,
and the cleanest way I can think of that is the binoculars, because otherwise you have some sort of like ugly, like, I don't know, like bars on the outside of the screen. But if you had like the binoculars where the sniper is always really looking through binoculars, because think of how close the sniper would have to actually be. Like we've never really kind of like figured out where the sniper is in relation to stuff, but they're probably always looking through something. And you could just make really like not as tight as the current level 1 zoom in, like somewhere in between where we are now and the level 1 zoom in, but with the little binocular cutouts. I don't know what to really call them.
can I say I'm not entirely sure that that's necessary? Like, I don't think it's necessary to zoom in on old art because you can see everything on old art. But on new art, you do need to zoom in already. And I think it might not be necessary to force the sniper to zoom because they already want to do it on new
Well,
art.
I don't want them to be forced zoomed. I want there to be a fixed aspect ratio, and then maybe like really light amount of binocular things. It's not like so zoomed in, but one, I don't want people to be able to cheat by changing their aspect ratio. Also, I got a different monitor, and the game's different. It's legitimately way different now that I have a new
But
monitor.
if we just
sucks.
if we just fix the aspect ratio, we don't need to add the binocular effect as well.
Nah,
you know?
not really. I'm more about the aspect ratio first. But you could justify it, like because if you fix the aspect ratio, there's gonna be part of the screen that has to be covered in something, right? Or you stretch or compress the video, so something has to happen. And I'm like, you could use the binoculars as the excuse for that. Otherwise, you're gonna have these big black bars on either the top or bottom. It's kind of strange.
Returning to this question of how to balance the game such that the sniper has to sort of dedicate more attention to particular things, what do we think of the idea of the recommendations feature as a way for the spy to direct and sort of force the sniper to look at different
I like
things?
it.
I love that.
Very promising.
I think it's
Yeah.
great.
Like it'll remove a lot of kind of the RNG-ish from the way, like the party, right? Like, how many times during like the SCL cast have we been like, oh, like the party kind of worked out, or like I guess we'll talk about without spoiling SCL 3 things, but we'll talk about like the game. Everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say the game, right? Like imagine how that would have worked with recommendations where like you could tell someone like, oh, go to the statues a bunch, right? To like just make the party look busier, or kind of mold the party around what your plan is as the spy. So I honestly can't wait for recommendations.
I just want to see them in action. Like, I'm so excited to actually see them happen, and they've been uptalked so long that it's like almost painful that they don't exist yet, right?
Well, we do. The game does have to get into Steam Early Access at some point, right?
I get it. I know.
There's no other idea other than recommendations right now that could be as elegant and potentially fix most of the things we're complaining about. There's nothing else in the pipeline that has that.
Yeah,
kind of
that's true.
I'm a bit worried about it though, because that's the sort of thing that
me
could
too.
really upset the balance of the game. And
Yes.
my hope with recommendations is that it would be the sort of feature that even if the spy can do it at all times, that they probably wouldn't want to do it very often. That's kind of what I'm hoping it'll be like. Is like you're still just gonna want to write. Yeah, I'm hoping it's
I kind of like the idea of like
that
the
you
Steam
won't
thing.
want to do a lot. Not because you'll be punished for it, but just because I
I
don't
like
know.
the idea of like the
like
spy
fake-
being the mastermind of the party. You just like puppeteering all those AIs to do.
But
that.
a mastermind is subtle. A mastermind doesn't just spam things. I think you guys are probably already agreeing, actually. I think KCM's just saying it shouldn't be something where you're just trying to recommend as many things as possible to as many partygoers as possible, just to like throw chaff in the air, right?
Maybe like
Yeah.
fake
Yeah, it's
naming
like
or
if you
There
only
needs to
use
be
it once
calculations for that.
precisely and it really helps you, like that kind of thing. Like it's maybe it's like a big effect that's like really helpful, but you don't want to do it too often for
Throw
a
them out
reason.
in the
If there's some sort of
I don't
animation
know.
tied to it, like if someone keeps talking and whoever that person's talking to goes to statues, it's like something the sniper could actually pick up on.
it's inherently a tell.
Talking in Nuance.
But is it because the AI are going to randomly go anywhere anyway?
Right, but let's look at the
So-
gamer thing. If they keep going to statues over and over again,
And then you could pretend to be that AI.
Right.
You can
Oh,
pretend to be that AI.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing.
It's just
Okay.
like grid testing floods.
Imagine you're a spy right now and you decide, I want to slow play, I want to frame, I don't want to finish missions, I think they're going to shoot. I think I can make them shoot. 90% of that decision is you not doing things. And the other 10% is just hoping that the party doesn't screw you over. So the recommendations at least means that when you decide you want to frame someone, you actually have a little something to do. There's an actual level of
Yeah,
higher
I
level
agree
of
with
skill. Right now, it's
Yeah.
literally just, I'm not going to do things and I hope it works for the most
Yeah,
part. I mean,
and
there's a
not
little
one
bit
of
of
the
maybe at the
times
right
that-
time, but
Well,
that's it.
Yeah, and keeping track of what the sniper's looking at. But
But it's just so minimal.
Yeah.
Most of it is at the mercy of the party, and this would just take some of that back.
also
And
I
the
have no
party
idea
usually
how
is
they're going to be
very
actually controlled. Like, there is hard enough to try to switch between
oh my god,
the different actions that you do. Doing the recommendations,
Well,
I have no idea what it's going to do.
I think it's going to be similar to Delegate, ultimately.
But then, like, that's going to be huge. Like, we're going to have to be pressing. Like, we're going to have to scroll through.
Yeah,
the
it'll
list
be like
so
recommend
Yeah, the UI
recommend
for it'll be interesting.
books, recommend
I believe
painting.
I believe the constraint Chris was saying was that it's the last place you went is what you can recommend.
Okay.
Oh, that would be
Like,
interesting.
oh, you
I
should
like
go
that.
check out those books. I just looked at those
I
books.
And
just-
that's what makes it inherently a tell.
Those books
is
were
that-
really delicious,
Right.
guys.
I kinda
It's like the
that
delegate.
because
It's like the delegate on pub.
right?
Yeah, no, A+. I actually really like that. Great.
Wait, but how does? Well, they won't go directly to your thing. Like, if you go to like one of the statues, they're not going to go to the same statue, right?
Right,
Like,
so
you
that
can't
might
like.
cancel out a person. Which
I
so
recommend someone that
which is
But
interesting
then,
because
like, think about all the framing you could do with that. Though.
Yeah, just follow an AI around.
but also the
Yeah, but
like
like,
extra
it's hard
challenges
to
to
frame like that.
animation cancels. Because imagine, okay, I'm going to recommend, then I'm going to go, and so that means there may be another guest who exits the conversation to go to that statue, but now they see you going to it, and so they cancel out, and so that's like an extra level of being able to like
oh God.
like
I'm for it.
impersonate an AI. Like, oh, I am an AI, like heading towards the statue, and now I'm canceling because the spy, not me, went over to that statue instead.
Right. We don't have to figure out right now if it's balanced. All we're really trying to determine is, could it be balanced? Could it be good? And the answer is obviously yes, but we need to play it and find out for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know. I like speculating on things that don't exist.
I
Why
want to
does
like
this
recommend
podcast
like, a blue
exist?
bookshelf to someone that has a green book. Like, you really got to check out that blue bookshelf. Make sure you bring that book with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so sick.
It's like, sir, is
We-
everything you
we
brought
can
to this
delegate
bookcase? Have you
microfilm.
packed your own books?
Yeah.
Delegating microfilm, easy game, easy life.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Can I
there's also the
completely-
book trading
Can I
thing.
completely change the subject? Actually, no, never mind. I'm not going to completely change anything.
Well, now I'm intrigued because I was going to
Very
ask, is
good.
there any like final subjects we want to cover before closing?
Oh, well, yeah, then I'm going to change the
Oh,
subject.
we didn't talk about. We only talked about one subject, and that was the
Yeah,
changes
let's-
to the
let's talk
game.
about
Yeah,
the
that
rest
took
of
us
PAX.
a while. There was also
Yeah.
the rest of the packs. Yeah.
What else?
Yeah,
so what else
Pax.
did we do? So, all right, just go down the list.
Yeah.
Just like game, like your favorite thing you saw at PAX that like wasn't SpyParty.
My favorite game I played at PAX was Pandemic Legacy Season 2. Yeah, that was sweet.
Steph wanted me to mention the results of the Wodar versus Steph epic Street Fighter V rematch.
Do tell.
I think Steph, if I recall, took the first round. It was pretty close, and then she got brutally stomped by Wodar, who showed her that Zangief just destroys.
I had a pep talk from Bacon. He brought me to the side of the ring. He splashed the water onto my face and said, just dodge, dip, dive, and dodge, and then just throw. Just continuously
that's
throw.
That's not what he said. He showed you how to do a couple moves, but you couldn't figure it out. So, no, Wodar was doing some cool shit. Bacon showed Wodar how to do like standing 360s. And that's pretty hard to do. And so Wodar was just jumping in, like grabbing, and it was pretty awesome. He was like tossing Steph's Ryu around like a rag doll towards the end. Yeah. It was fun. It was really fun. I got to shout at Steph, so it was fun.
Yeah, I made Bacon what, $2, $3? What was the bet on that?
I think the bet was it $2? $2.
Yeah,
American or Canadian?
The real money,
real
matches,
money,
as it
real
were.
money.
Yeah.
Hundreds of dollars on plane tickets.
It's
$2
doubling
bet when you
next
get
year.
there.
Next year, the bet is supposed to be for $4, I think.
Ooh.
Which means
But she practiced.
next year's not as big a
This is
deal, but the
cheating.
year after is $8. That's when it gets important.
Hey,
So in like 10
in
years,
like
when you're playing for it, yeah.
Right, when SpyParty's released in 40 years, it's going to be really up there.
It's like that chessboard thing.
It's gonna be the highest,
Yep, it's the
stakes
chess
match. Yeah.
Can we play Can we play like Dragon Ball Z Fighters next year?
No,
Or does
next.
it have to be Street Fighters?
It has to be Street Fighter.
Street
You think
Fighter
Street
might
Fighter's
not
gonna
be
be
there next. Yeah, it might not
there?
be there next year.
Yeah.
We'll have to. I think
There's a
Bacon
Street
and
Fighter
I.
machine at the
Bacon
at
and I
Gamers.
will make the executive decision.
Wow.
It's our bet.
Yeah.
And we'll probably take into account, what are and Steph's thoughts on it.
Our extremely patient discussion moderator, I believe, had a question though.
Yeah, let's go.
What
let's
else
do,
was
like
attacks?
in order? Like go to from the top to the bottom, just so that it's obvious about.
Yeah,
the
alphabetical is the only way to do this, I think. The last word. So
The best thing I saw at PAX, other than SpyParty. I really liked playing that game of Secrets that we all played. That was really cool.
Oh yeah.
And Drop Mix. That would probably be the second
Drop
favorite, which
Mix.
was
Yeah, that was
a
pretty good.
card video game that Harmonix is coming out with. It's really fun.
A card, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a rhythm card game remix.
Kind of.
Something.
It's like Magic the Gathering and DJ Hero.
Yeah.
It's Drop Mix. There you go.
Pretty good.
Can
yeah.
you
Right?
can you
Like,
explain
how else would you
how
describe-
that? Can you explain how
Well,
that
there's a-
works?
Yeah, so I know, Toon, this is your thing,
Yeah,
so
you
you
can
can
do it.
explain it.
So there's a board that you can play on, and every card has an RFID chip inside of it that when you place it on the board, it makes music. And each card is...
Well, it's hooked to your, like a tablet or whatever.
yeah.
Like yeah.
And each card is an instrument from a well-known song. So if you want the vocals from, I don't know, Sweet Caroline, like that's there.
Bum, bum, bum. Is it?
Yeah.
I
don't
can't
know.
believe someone from Boston said that.
I know, right? That was the first song that jumped into my head.
Of course it
surprisingly,
was.
Matt.
Wait. SpyParty players are not sports fans. They don't know why I reference that. That's because that plays at Fenway Park every game.
Yeah, seventh
Sports?
inning stretch.
Yes.
Really?
Sports.
Yes.
Wow.
Sports.
God, you're all the worst.
Physical esports.
You did this to us.
I did nothing.
So as you play cards, the mix that happens changes, and as you play cards, you get points, and the team or player with the most points that
It's
gets to 21 or 15 points first wins. And it's really interesting. Like cards have different effects that it's just enough like randomness and enough skill and figuring things out that it makes a really fun pickup game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's also
I'm
a
on-
competitive mode that was pretty fun as well.
Mm.
I'm more impressed. Like all the remixes actually sound pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
and-
mixing tech is really good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So what else?
I probably
was-
played that 3 times. Cletos?
Yeah.
Cletus.
I don't know. I think I spent most of my time at the SpyParty booth, honestly. That and a lot of Joust. That was fun.
Yeah,
That
Joust.
was the best game at PAX, I'd say.
Joust.
I do like Joust
Especially
a lot.
watching Checker play Joust. Oh my
Oh
god.
That's
my
funny. He's
God.
like, walk up, bam, bam, bam.
He's just
There
got
it is.
like he has fire in his eyes when it happens too.
Yeah. He
It's
just
just
had
you
no
can
fear.
see the anger. He just gets out.
Yeah, I think he was working through some stuff, frankly.
Yeah, the other players. That's who was working through.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, man. He may not be able to snipe Kaylee in SpyParty, but he can.
Yeah,
he can
I went
knock-
pretty.
He knocked that controller out of his hand.
I went
Cletus-
pretty. I went pretty even with him in Joust actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Was Kane okay?
Yeah, no, so I still.
Yeah,
It-
it's OP
well,
was
Kane,
a
so again, I'm
Kaylee
Joust
got
only.
nerfed after last year.
I did.
Yeah, Kane
But-
Bug is too good.
Yeah, no, I was Joust's only stand switching character, but they hit me with the nerf bat, and yeah, my mobility's a lot lower now.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
No jokes. That's serious.
No
talk.
one understands that.
I don't
You
understand
say-
that, but-
Kaylee has like a strategy that he uses in Joust, and the leaders of the Joust thing, namely Hummus, I think, probably said, "Hey, we need to nerf that a little. You
I
got
didn't. I was
you got a
just
really
like,
good reach." That was what I inferred from it.
Oh, I
sorry.
didn't say
I
anything.
thought you
anyway,
meant
I don't think.
you hit him with a Nerf gun, and that was how you balanced him having a cane.
Oh no,
No,
that's a
no.
game term.
just
Kaylee
just
got
as
nerfed.
he's
not
playing,
allowed to
you
use his
just
cane like
do-
all the way
Oh.
out. You can't whack people from way far away.
I never tried to whack people from my file
Oh.
because that'd be clearly unfair in my opinion. No,
I don't know.
I
People
did.
were
I
throwing
lost.
their shoes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
throw hats and shoes.
Yeah, I knew.
Hummus did ban that. Hummus
I did ban that. Yeah, all things need to be like I don't know. The way I do it is just like I go by the wisdom of the crowd. Like if the crowd gets mad at people throwing shoes, then fine, shoes are banned. And nobody
So
seemed
you
to get
can
mad
be
at the cane, so like whatever.
Because
How
who's
come
going to
you're
be
mad
mad
at
at the
the
cane?
king?
Oh,
who's
what
gonna
are
be
you
mad
going
at the
to? You going to take my cane away? Oh, what?
Yeah.
If the crowd wanted
That's
it,
how
I
I
would've
get you.
Yeah. It's like people like do things like they hide their controllers, and like some groups are like, "Yep, that was a smart thing to do," and other groups like I've seen people get like loudly booed for that when they like turn out to win because they were hiding their controller and nobody. knew
Yeah,
they were
like last
actually
year
playing.
people cheered for it. This year a guy got booed for it.
The guy got booed, right?
Yeah.
It's different all the
It's-
time. So I'm
yeah.
just like, whatever.
Democracy is
Evolving
cool,
game.
my friends.
All right, so we've
Yeah.
got 3 minutes before I have to go. So we're gonna.
Oh, God.
Sorry,
All right, fast
just
mode, fast mode, go drop,
just to
go.
push, just to push
Go drop.
people. So who else
I
had
played a
something to
just
video
talk
game
about-
about parenting, and I also
Yeah.
started a podcast, and that was
Rich
great.
Cast.
Bridgecast.
Yeah, if you haven't
All
heard
right,
of Bridge
KCM,
Cast,
KCM, go.
go.
I didn't really play anything but SpyParty, but the room was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think of
I,
the Children was the name of the game that John was talking about, by the way. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah.
I spent most of my time at the SpyParty booth, but I really enjoyed Hello Neighbor, which is a crazy stealth game that I am really looking forward to. I love playing Captain Sonar. I love playing Joust. The room was awesome. I learned a bunch of hot new memes from Hummus that I'm going to bring back to my group that watches the room. And yeah, that was it.
Yeah. I also like Don't Think of the Children. The room was great.
Think of the children.
Don't think.
Don't think of the whatever it was. There's something else I was gonna say. Drop Mix was fun. Yay.
I'm gonna name drop Tiny Bubbles. It's a little puzzle game that was absolutely beautiful and it
that
was really fun.
fun.
And I don't think anybody's mentioned it. The escape room was brilliant.
It
Oh,
was.
yeah.
It was.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
our zombie played SpyParty. Of like 20,000 people that have ever bought SpyParty, he was one of them.
Woohoo.
My God.
That makes no sense out of context. There's zombie.
Yeah.
Don't worry
actors
about it. It's just fine.
There
Also,
was
there
a
was a
zombie.
zombie.
There we go. We're good.
Stop worrying about it.
Yeah, we need to end soon, guys. We don't have time.
Yeah.
All right. The best thing I saw was Cuphead, but I've been following Cuphead for a while, so that's
Yep,
not really a
yep,
surprise.
yep.
And Escape Room.
Nice.
Yeah, normally I just say Joust. That's technically the right answer, but it's boring to say Joust every single year that it was the most fun thing. So I'll say a mix of the Escape Room, yes, which was super fun because, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say it was really fun for all involved. And Return of the Obra Dinn, Lucas Pope's follow-up
Hell yeah.
to Papers, Please.
Yeah.
I think not only is it interesting, but he's such an exceptional, thoughtful guy, and I got to talk to him for a few minutes, and I loved it, and you got to check this game out, Return of the Obra Dinn.
Also, shout out to the A's losing on a wild pitch after coming out.
Oh, yeah!
Holy shit. The bases loaded. We got
Sports.
2 outs and then
Sports.
just threw away a ball. And it
Go
was
Mariners.
Sports.
All right.
Shout out
Alright.
to Whole Foods.
And then finally, I think I didn't play much there, but I did play Clink in space with exclamation parts for each
That's
of the
nice.
words. And that was fun. And then I really loved the story about One Track meeting his best friend, Video Game Donkey.
Yeah. We don't have much time, but right. Apparently, a Video Game Donkey signed up on my movie website when he was 15 years old, and posted some early video reviews and got some constructive feedback. And apparently, he took it to heart, and now he has almost 4 million YouTube subscribers. So he came by, and we had lunch, and he's a cool guy. And I told him about SpyParty.
Apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I didn't even know. I was just like, oh, this guy's cool.
Care of him. I don't want to put my finger on the scale. Kaylee tutored him, and I tutored his wife, and they were both pretty good, actually.
His wife was in his head, but that's a story for another day.
She shot who he was based on who he would pick.
In the first 15 seconds, like you'd be wheelchair guy,
Easy.
bam, dead, easy.
It's always wheelchair
Easy.
guy.
Oh, and let's not forget EZ, which is the last PAX meme,
Zed.
which is Canadian easy, obviously.
Thank you so much for having us on, Sharper. It was a great
Yeah.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
guys for coming.
GG Sharper.
Putting up with this clown car.
Yeah.
Hey, well, we know a thing or two about clown cars.
Yeah,
Also, remember to edit out the thing I may or may not have been supposed to say. I don't know.
Also, edit out that thing that I said that
Yeah,
really should
I
have
don't
said.
think we said anything productive
Yeah,
this
and-
time.
Edit out everything.
You should edit out the thing you were supposed to say. Edit this part out too, of course.
No,
It'll-
keep
it'll
this
just be a
part
blank-
and edit out the thing.
It'll be a blank MP4 file.
There's
He's
no.
dead.
Useful from this
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, edit out the part where I said that SpyParty was released.
This will basically just be
Yeah,
like
I'm
the-
sorry, everyone, but SpyParty is not released yet.
Yeah,
you know,
an hour
just
20
just
white noise.
replace everything we've recorded with like the final scene from the film Burn After Reading.
Yes.
Just clown car music.
That is
Oh, no,
a good scene.
we should get like the meep sounds.
Mimi.
Like everyone's voice is just like James being meep mop, meep mop. meep,
Well,
mop.
I'm gonna step out of this.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think
Sorry,
it's
that's
Oh,
all
stay
now.
with us.
Now we're
Well, you
about to
still can.
transition into Bridgecast.
Yeah. I
Bridgecast,
think-
yeah.
Oh yeah, go follow Bridgecast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At
at
Bridge
Bridge_cast
_cast
on Twitter, yeah.
Everyone listening, please do that.
GG.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming.
Yep.
Thanks, Sharper. Bye,
Everyone,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.